Hello, hello. How's everyone doing? We're gonna give folks 7 minutes and then we'll get started. So feel free to grab a coffee. Still have a few minutes before we're gonna get started today. How's everybody doing on this Tuesday day? Good?
Good.
Awesome. I've been going through the some of the final exams and we've had a few people have passed. So that's very exciting. Hopefully they'll share the good news in Slack soon.
I got one thing for you, Lewis. I don't know if you noticed, but the Slack tool can only pull 15 messages at a time.
Um, Sorry, do you mean Slack or are we talking about MindStudio?
MindStudio's Slack
Okay, great. Yeah,
bot block.
sorry, Joe, this is not the forum for this. I do want to make sure your question gets answered. But we're gonna be teaching some concepts here that are not really gonna be related. And I want to make sure that we don't confuse people.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, we'll have a build club tomorrow at the same time, and then we can definitely go through it. Or yeah, if you've posted in the actual Slack with
Mhm.
this,
Oh yeah,
hopefully someone has responded. If not, I'll definitely take a look after the masterclass today.
sure. I'll add you in the thread.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Mhm. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I don't want to like it's I just want to make sure that we're separating the two because otherwise we're gonna we might end up confusing some folks. Okay, we're gonna give folks like 3 more minutes. how's everybody doing with the assignments? We kind of talked about JSON a little bit last week. Do people remember the basics of JSON? Because we're gonna need to use it in today's masterclass, and I'm gonna show you how it all works. Is JSON all making sense? The We're gonna review a little bit of what we learned last week, and then we're gonna be walking through how we actually use that JSON in practice in various places in our workflow. So it'll all be good stuff. Yeah, good question, Justine. I saw, how long are people, has anyone taken the final exam yet? Not yet. Okay, that's okay. Some folks are just wrapping up in cohort one. Other folks are going through and going along with the second cohort here. So totally fine if you haven't taken the test. Um,
Hey
I
Luis,
myself, it took me about,
Luis. So
yep.
sorry to interrupt, but like when I click on the link, it says sign in to start the meeting. But this seems to be the correct meeting. So I think there's some people having trouble getting in, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I see. Okay, let me link back to the Notion page.
Yeah,
Is that
hold on. Let me try to start the meeting actually and see if it merges. Okay.
okay? Thanks.
All right.
I hope I didn't share the wrong link.
Okay. Sorry, I'm back in the right place. So the link is correct. Let me socialize on Slack right now. Sorry to interrupt.
No, no, no. Thanks for bringing to our attention. Yeah, I shared the link in the to the actual event in the Notion curriculum, so hopefully that link works. Not sure why, because I just copied the link from directly from Notion into Slack here. Weird.
Are people having trouble getting in?
Yeah, it seems like people are having trouble getting in, like it was asking for a meeting passcode.
Do we want to just like start up another? Do you want to just use like a Hangout and looks like some
No,
folks,
I swapped the
looks
link
like
out.
people are coming in. Here you go.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
swapped the link in the announcements. So,
Okay, cool. Well, and some folks were in my other call that I went over, and so Rich, Sandra. Um, all right. Hey guys, I get you for multiple back-to-back sessions.
that's right.
Yay.
Okay, so people are coming from the other session as well. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, by the way, for those of you that don't know what the other session is, this mystery other session, again, there's like countless needs that we have as an organization. One of them is we need people that can build agents and help companies adopt these agents by building them for the companies. And that's great. I'm super excited about the success of these cohorts. We're starting to graduate people. And again, all of you can get there, and we will get all of you there. You know, uh, even if I have to like call you and harass you, I will get you certified. Don't mess with me. Okay. Yeah, I think like all of the warrants against my, harassing people are probably all done now, so I can build them up again. Okay, and so that's one is we need that, and that's great. You guys are fulfilling it. That's awesome. So we expect to graduate, over 100, and certainly over the next whatever month. But some are just slower than others. No problem. We'll get you there. The other thing that we want help with is kind of spreading the word, more broadly. Again, today it's all product-led growth. Companies come to us, but we want to make it even easier for people to go out to companies and say, hey, this MindStudio thing exists. AI duct tape, you need it, just here. And kind of take them by the hand or lead a horse to water. pick your analogy. And so anyway, so we spun up kind of a sales track, I'm calling it. And some folks that are here were in that track as well. It's all available to all of you. In fact, the people who are most qualified to sell, not kind of, again, kind of use the word in air quotes here, because there's not actually any selling to do. There's just more evangelism than selling to do. But the people that are most qualified to sell are the people here, are the people who are in the boot camp, who've really spent a lot of time with this thing, who already feel confident, who already have portfolios, who already have a history of posts about this. And so those people have already, all of you, been building up your credibility, your ability to be able to, when you talk to people, to be taken more seriously. And when you will say, you should go and get some AI duct tape, you will have much higher success than like random people who just went kind of through the sales track. And soon they'll go through the boot camp as well. So these are these parallel things. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to, we're going to let Louise take the lead here and teach us about an extraordinarily important thing that's it's not difficult, but compared to the super simple things in MindStudio, may seem difficult at first, but we're going to make that understandable and easy. And by the way, those of you who spent 3.5 hours with me this past Sunday, thank you. Hope that was, valuable to you. If you took the final exam after that, hopefully that helped a lot. For those of you that missed it, and we talked about like what's generally on the final exam, like I didn't give away too many answers, but I tried to touch upon most things. You can go watch it. It's recorded, and so feel free and do it. Okay, great to see you. I'll shut up. Louis, this is all yours. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, thanks, Dimitri. And if you have a keen eye for watching the faces of folks, if you see that what I'm explaining is not resonating, please just make sure to say, hey, pause for a second. Let's look into this a little bit closer.
Sounds good.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and so let me know when everyone can see my screen here. Yes, good. Okay, awesome. So last week we talked about JSON. We talked about what makes up a JSON object. We learned about different data types. So before we dive into learning about how we use JSON, I think it's important that we have kind of this quick review. JSON is this structured language, and it allows us to structure data in various ways. And inside of MindStudio workflows, we can use certain blocks to iterate through that data. So I'm going to quickly just use a generate text block, and we're going to generate some JSON object here just for quick review. We're going to say generate a JSON object containing user data. And we'll save this as a variable. We'll call this data. And then in the display content block, we will display the data. And let's make sure that we're outputting as JSON here. So let's quickly run this and see what we get back. Okay, it's starting. We're gonna have the AI generate some JSON here in just a second. Or let me just refresh. Sorry, folks, 1 second. Okay, that's okay. Let's try ChatGPT. This is just for review. Okay, so this is a JSON object, right? And it's you can tell it's an object because it has these single curly braces kind of opening and closing this object. And just as a review, there's different data types when we look through a JSON object. There's these things called strings, that's just some text. There can be other objects. You see these double curly braces nested within this, and it's kind of like files on your computer, right? Files can have excuse me, folders on your computer. Folders can have other folders. Folders can have different file types within the folder. It's very similar, that analogy. You can have numbers, and then you can have these things called arrays, which are lists of similar type data types, right? So what we can do inside of all of our agents is we're able to use this data, and we're able to pull uh, different values from the data. So for example, we can pull an individual ID or a username, or we can go through and find the first name by using dot notation, like we learned last week, or we would say profile dot first name to get this value back, right? Does everybody remember that? Thumbs up. Is all that ringing a bell? Okay, great. So let's use this in practice inside of a MindStudio agent, right? What we're going to do is we're going to generate multiple users, generate JSON for, let's say, 3 users containing some info about each. Let's make sure that we're using, let's use a quicker model here. So these JSON objects, right, can also be arrays of objects. And so if each object, here we go, is a user, we have 3 items you can see here in this array, right? This is the first user, Alice Wonderland. That's a very funny name, Bob the Builder and Charlie Chaplin. Great. Google has a sense of humor. That's awesome. Um, And each user has a name, an email, whether or not they're an admin, and their last login. And each of these are different keys, and each of these keys has a different value attached to it. So if we want to iterate through this list, we can utilize uh, this special syntax called handlebars to allow us to do that inside of uh, prompts or inside of display content blocks. And so let's say we only wanted to list out the names. We can go through and use this syntax called each. So we have this variable called data where all of this is stored, and we can use this hashtag each, and we need to close it out. And inside, we're able to iterate through each item inside of data here. So it's going to go through and look in this user object, and then pull out the information we need to pull out. In this case, we're going to pull out the name, and then it's going to go through the next one and do the same thing, and it's going to go through the next one and do the same thing. And so because we're inside of this data object, we can pull the name from each item in that data set. So let's go ahead and preview this. We'll run this one more time. And what we're going to get back is each name. Here we go. Alice Wonderland, Bob the Builder, Charlie Chaplin. Does this concept make sense? So what we're doing here is iterating through that entire array of user objects. Thumbs up, thumbs down if we need to explain a little more. We're gonna take this slow because I want to make sure that we're all kind of understanding like how we iterate through stuff, things like that. Okay, check. Yes, Sandy, you have a question about this?
Yeah, I guess I missed last week. Is it inside double curly braces? Does that make it a variable, or is this just the way that Handlebar iterates through it? What?
So what we're doing is we're using this special handlebar syntax, this hashtag each, and then we're referencing our variable here. So we're basically saying like for each item inside of data, do whatever's in here or like display whatever's in here. Does that make sense? So for example, we could potentially have, like name, and that's just text, and we can add another space here, right? And if we ran this one more time, or I could, even if I wrote hello world, it's going to go through for each object in this list and type name, give us the value of the name from that previous JSON object, or excuse me, array called data, and then type hello world. So it should do this 3 times because we have 3 objects in here. So let's reload this one more time, have it run, and see what happens. Okay, so here we have name undefined because maybe the structure was a little different this time around. So let's take a look. Dimitri, sorry,
Hey, Luis, it seems like you should just have one JSON object and not be generating it with each run. Because
yeah,
otherwise
let's
you're
go ahead
like
and do that.
just generate an object, load it, and so like there's no reason to regenerate it.
Yeah, good call. So we have this same JSON object. Let me go ahead and we'll save that as a display content. We'll just paste this in, and then we'll save this to a variable called data. And instead of generating it each time, we'll just have this JSON object here. Yeah, good call, Dimitri. Thanks. So you can see here that for each object, it printed out what we wanted it to print out, which was name plus the name, the value of the name in that object, then hello world. And so it does that 3 times for each. Prasanna, do you have a question about this?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Luis. So you said it's a JSON object. Is that the reason why you use the square bracket within the hard-coded data?
So this is the square brackets indicates an array. So what's actually being generated here in this run is an array of multiple objects.
Okay, I just want to make sure that even though it could be having only one item, but still it is considered as an array. So it's good to have the square bracket around it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Vignesh?
Louis, when you're returning name, does it matter that it's at the first level, or let's say there was another level in this array? Would it have returned that name as well?
So right now it's returning 3 names because it's going through each individual object and finding that name key, right? And it's returning the value of that key.
Now, my question is if there's a nested name again below this.
So if you had, let's say you had name and you had, or in this example, like you had another value nested under role, and role had a value called name, it wouldn't appear in this list because we're not accessing that specifically, right? Because here what we're saying is get the name, and if we were wanting, let's say it was nested, the name was nested under role, we would need to use the dot notation role dot name.
Okay.
In order to get that. Is that Is that making sense in this?
Can I say something here?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just for everyone else, like I had big issues because I was creating incorrect JSON. So I was dealing with nested results, and it took me like about a day and a half to figure out for a lot of the sub workflows that we just need a simple array that doesn't have any like the gentleman was just talking about having sub levels. So that's so important. And as a beginner JSON user, that was a real gotcha. Anyway, I finally just figured it out. So there you go.
That's awesome, Mark. And that's a really good point. Like the simpler you can keep the JSON that's being generated, the easier it is going to be to iterate through all of that data. Sean, yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, I noticed that whenever it first came out, the syntax, it had the name and then it said hello world. And then right after that, it put the name again. So is that because there was not a space below that? So if you wanted to actually look the same, you would need to put that space at the bottom there?
Yeah, you're saying this.
Yeah, yeah. So it says name, Alice Wonderland, hello world, and then it immediately put name again. So if you were actually wanting to say name, Alice Wonderland, hello world, and then start a new line that says name, then in that syntax, you would need to have a space below that. Is that what would create that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you'd need to have a couple of spaces here, and
Gotcha.
then it would put the name on a new line. I
Gotcha.
think I just didn't have it formatted correctly here. You can also use I think you can use this sort of \n to create a new line in Markdown. But I'm not. Dimitri, do you know if that's the case? Can you use \n to create a new line?
Sorry, I haven't been listening.
No
And,
worries.
I'm not sure.
You can, so sometimes you can use this \n to create a new line in Markdown if it's not appearing in your display content block. Okay, so really quick, we've kind of covered how to iterate through these things, right? Let's assume that we're using the same generated JSON, and now we want to write a poem, for each name in this array of users. We want to write a unique poem for every user. The way that we would do that is by running what's called a sub workflow. And a sub workflow is simply a process that only uses the values from one item in your structured data. So we can do that by creating a run workflow block. And this run workflow block is going to run a separate workflow and pass in values from that data down into that workflow, right? So we don't have a workflow here, but let's say we can create a new one, and we're going to call this one, we'll rename it, we'll call it poem. And in this workflow, we're going to generate a poem. Write a poem, make sure to use name in the poem. So how do we pass these values down from the original JSON object, that structured data that we get, down into this workflow? Well, because this workflow is completely independent, we first need to make sure that this workflow, this sub workflow, maybe I'll even rename this and add sub and dash at the beginning, is set up properly to be run in the run workflow. And so we need to make sure that the sub workflow has two things. One is a launch variable, because we need to pass data down into this workflow. So we're going to create a launch variable called name, because that's what we're referencing in our prompt here. And then we need to make sure that we are creating a structured output to send back up into our main workflow here. And so to do that, we'll go to the end block, we'll have JSON output, and maybe our JSON output can have that same name. And we're just creating we're creating basically JSON here, right? We have a name and we can apply a value to that name, which is the same thing. We called it name here. We're just going to pass this value straight back up. And then we can have something called poem. And we haven't created a value for this yet, but if we had the output variable here called poem, we can then apply the value here so that the poem also gets included in this data that comes back up. Is this making sense? Yeah. Alex, I see you have a question.
Yeah, Luis, I saw you created kind of a string in a sense in the generate text box and that workflow there. Is that right? It's a string that it's going to.
Oh no, this
You put
doesn't matter.
quotations around it, and it kind of I wasn't sure why.
This is basically me just saying, like, if I were to type this in, make sure to use Alice Wonderland and see how I want to specifically I want to highlight that they need to like use this in the poem itself. Like I could write this as I could write this like this as well. Name, maybe I should just not take shortcuts here and just do it right. So here I'm gonna say make sure to use name in the poem.
I see. So that was more for formatting than anything else that you did that then.
Yeah, I was just doing like a sloppy job of writing my prompt. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So great. This is all making sense. Awesome. So just to kind of recap what we're doing, we have a launch variable in this sub workflow called name, and we're just using this one block workflow here, super simple, where we're using that name that creates this output variable called poem. And then at the end, we're creating some JSON to send back up into the parent workflow, the name and the poem. So now we can configure the run workflow block, and we can choose that sub workflow to run. Now we can choose to run it once, but usually these run workflow blocks will run multiple times because we want to do this one time for every name included in that user list that we generated. And there are different kinds of iterators that help you navigate through this data. There's this thing called auto extract, which uses AI to extract values. And this is recommended for when you have kind of messy data like random text or like a big string of text. If you have this structured data here, like we have here, what I would recommend is that you'd use this JSON array input because we already have JSON going in. So what we're bringing in is this input array, right? And the input array is just the JSON that we want to iterate through. So in this case, that's just called data. So we're going to use double curly braces. We're going to bring in that data variable. And then all of the outputs from the various iterations are going to be saved into this variable, output variable that we're going to call, we can call it whatever we want. I'm going to call it all poems. Now you can choose to, in a run workflow block, choose to run these in parallel, which means you run them all at the same time, or you can run them sequentially. And there are kind of some trade-offs to each of these. Obviously, running them in parallel is much faster, but if there are some situations in which you need the data from the previous run in order to do the next run, and so you pretty much would always choose sequential when there's sort of this situation or certain timeouts, like you need to give it a certain amount of time before it runs again, something like that. So we're going to run it in parallel because we're just generating some poems. There's this thing. Yeah, Prasanna, I see you have a question.
Sorry, I can wait. Louis, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There's also this setting called error behavior, and this is going to determine whether or not the workflow completely shuts down if something fails, right? Oh, Justin, sorry, do you have a question regarding what we're
Yeah.
looking at here?
Yeah. My question is, would this be a scenario where if, like, for instance, the 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 agent where you monitor a website, would you put the many different URLs and have the thing rerun, like each one like in a sub workflow, like name, or URL.
Yes. Yeah,
That would
you're
work like
you're
that?
you're exactly. So in practice, like how we would use this, right, is we probably wouldn't have this display content block of names, right? We would probably have a block like the search Google block, and that could have any sort of search query. One second, let me um, and we can have an output variable called search results, and that can come back to us in JSON, right? So um, I'm going to just hard code the AI agent search query. This is probably going to be, dynamic as you're building, but let's just see like really quick what comes back from the Google search block. So we're going to use search results, display that in this display content block, and then end the workflow and just see what happens. So in this case, right, we're going to get this structured data back from that Google search. And in that Google search, you're going to have different values for each search result, right? It's going to have a title of the website, a description for that website, and a URL. And so in practice, what you're going to want to do is access this URL for every object in this list, right? So you're exactly right. That's kind of the pattern that we're getting to here.
Let's, sorry, if we could pause
Thank
here.
you.
I think it's
Yeah.
important. I think, again, let's stay here until everybody understands this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What we have here is we've got, again, this thing is called an array of these objects. It's a set of these objects. They're numbered. You see 0, 1, 2, each one of these things. And inside of each of these objects are three things: a title, a description, and a URL. And in the next object, there's a title, a description, a URL, and so it goes on and on. And there's how many objects? If we scroll all the way to the bottom, we'll see that they go to 29, but they start at 0. So there's 30 objects here. Arrays always start at 0 as the first index. And so we have 30 things we need to process. If we were like to go and scrape each one of these things, to go and scrape each one, we would scrape them one at a time. And so we might create a workflow called scrape URL. And then into that workflow, we would one at a time pass each one of these objects or the URL from each of these objects. And it would then go and scrape that, and it would return back to that main flow to then go and scrape the second one and finish and return, go scrape the third. And it sits there and it loops. That's what we mean by iteration. Iterator means to go through, to loop through this, to enumerate would be another sort of word for it, okay? And so that's when you use that run workflow block, is in situations like these. And situations like these come up all the time, where you've got like a set of things you need to process. You got a set of emails that you just pulled. You need to go through each one of those emails and process it. You would use this. You want to scrape a bunch of different URLs, you would use this. You've got a bunch of data that's got a bunch of, information about books. And each one is like some information about a book. The title, the author, the number of pages, whatever, TLDR. And you've got a long list of that. Great, you can iterate through that long list by dumping that list into this run workflow block. Okay. And when the list is well formatted like this, which is what we're showing you, Luis also kind of breezed over kind of the default version of that block. Luis, if you could show us the default version of this, which is auto extract. Sometimes the list is just like a long list of text, or bullet points. And it says, book one and title. And it's like, it's not structured JSON, but it's just a bunch of, Luis, maybe go to GPT and just generate a long list of books, as and like say author, book and author, and in plain text, right? And we could literally dump that into this in that other mode and say, for each one of these books, do this. So there's an easier way to do it. We're showing you the better way, the more sophisticated way. You're more in control. But you see, like, here's just a list. Now, it's a little bit structured because, like, at least it says, title 1984 author, almost like looks like it's JSON, right? It's not JSON, it's just text. But we could literally, like, take that text and then, because it's clear for a model, if an AI model looked at this, it would know how to turn it into a JSON array. You see, in fact, we could tell ChatGPT now to turn it into a JSON array, and it would do that. And so there in MindStudio, you don't have to watch this load, Luis. Go back to, in here in MindStudio, if you are set to this auto extract default mode, you literally just give it the data. In this case, the data would be just like a bunch of text. And then in the extraction prompt, you would say, extract each story, or, for each story, or you could just say each story. It just needs to know what you're looking at for each, each title, not story, each book title. And then it would sort of automatically convert this into a JSON array. But again, we've been teaching you, now click over back to the advanced mode. We've been teaching you the way we do it, which is you guys are going to be certified AI developers. Let's have you do it the better way, which is this. And in this case, it requires that the data not be a bunch of text, but the data indeed is a valid JSON array. This is a technical term. It's a term of art. Okay. And the valid JSON array starts with what? You guys already know it. The square brackets. Starts with the square brackets. Whenever there's square brackets, that's an array. And inside of it are a bunch of curly brace, close curly braced, and stuff in the middle with name value pairs. And each one of those things is called an item. And that's what we call it here, an item. It's an item of the array. And then we use this term item here actually later to refer to this as well. Okay, so sorry, Louis. Is that helpful? You guys, again, I kind of tried to be overly verbose here with you on this, but I think like once you get it, and none of this becomes hard. It's just this thing is expecting a valid JSON array. This Google search thing actually returns a valid JSON array. We saw it there. And that's a valid JSON array. That's what it looks like. I got to take this for a moment. You guys keep.
Yeah, thanks, Dimitri. So I see there are a few hands here. Let's just stay paused for a second before we continue. Prasanna, did you want to go ahead and ask your question here?
Yeah, sure. Yes. So my question was, I know that you're passing the data from the JSON to the workflow, right? That's the process that you showed us. And one of the attribute that is what you're passing to generate the poem, right? My question was, what or how do we handle if the data is blank so that the downstream stuff doesn't fail? Where do I make sure that the data is existing, only then go to the workflow? How do we handle such scenarios?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So typically what we would do, I guess to kind of explain the question a little bit more is in this example where we're pulling from Google, like doing a Google search, we get these really clean results that always have the same structure. And what Prasanna is asking is when this structure is not clean, how can we make sure, how do we iterate through that list? If some of it is clean, if some of it's not, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, my question is, I just want to make sure that your workflow is called only if there is some data. Otherwise, it might fail downstream because you're doing a while loop. And let's say in the second item, the attribute is not there. So where do I define that logic? That's what my curiosity was.
Right. So typically what we would do, or at least what I would do before this, is if you have like a very large array or JSON object, I would utilize AI to help me format and clean it up for use, almost like preparing the data and normalizing it for use in the run workflow block so that we actually can access it each time that we run the sub workflow.
So the bottom line is make sure that the data cleansing is my job just before it goes to downstream. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Right.
Thank you.
That's correct. Yeah. Michael?
Yes, so I have a question about if you click on the run workflow, please, on the output variable, but I think I answered that already for myself. I just read that. So because I was wondering if it's not overwriting, but the output is also an array. So you get basically the free poems in one array, and then you can access each of these poems afterwards, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's what's happening is in the sub workflow, we're creating a single object that gets passed back up. And so that array of objects is saved as the variable, the output variable here, all poems. And in this case, each object is going to have the name of the person and the poem that's generated.
You should run it, Luis, and then display the object, the output, all poems, right? So that
Yeah,
people can
let
see.
me do that. So I do need to explain like one last thing for the run workflow. So we talked about how we are using this input array, and then we have these things called items, and each item is an individual. You can see here the numbers here indicate one item in this array, right? And so inside of run workflow blocks, there's this unique variable called item that represents the single item in the array. Now, in this case, I believe our item is that user, that specific user. And so we want to make sure that we're accessing the name of that user, not the entire object. So we want to use item and then dot name because in the object there we have the key name, right? So that's going to be how we get the name of this thing. So now let's go ahead. We'll run this thing. Dimitri, I know we might need to double click into this for a sec, but let's go ahead and run this thing, and then we can explain this a bit further. Okay, so let's go ahead and open the draft agent. So you can see here, we're generating text for all three. These three are all running in at the same time. And in the debugger, you can see that each of these sub workflows is running for each user in that array where we're generating a poem. Now all of this is running in that generate text block, and then this is the sub workflow. You can click on these sub workflows and see the process of that sub workflow. So you can see our prompt here with the replacement. We have the name being entered, and then we have the poem being generated. And then at the end, we have this object called that includes the name and the poem. And then that's all being put together, sent back up into that parent workflow where we get this this big object here, or excuse me, this big array that contains each person's name and the poem.
So you see this thing that Luis is pointing out, this is the result of all three of those loops, of those runs that are being run. There's three, you see 0, 1, 2. There's three items, three objects in there. Each object has those output variables, name and poem, that we return. And the name, we're just filling in the name. And in the poem, again, the poem is the thing that the thing generates. And so now, once we've gone through those loops, once we've iterated through our array, we have a new variable called all poems. And what is all poems? What kind of a thing is that? Well, all poems is also a well-structured JSON array. And then we could do other things with that. Okay. this is, some of you were in the class when I said that our job in this is to make you queasy. And then after queasy, once you get through queasy, that you feel great. A bunch of you are queasy. So we're doing our job. Okay. Sit with it more, watch it again, do it again. This is simply a matter of repetition of exposure. Look at Mark. Mark has been a great testament
Yes.
to this. Sheer willpower. Everybody seen the movie Rudy? You know, Mark is the Rudy of AI. He does not give up. The number of hours he's invested in this, beating his head against the wall. Listen, I've done it. Takes one to know one. I was learning to write code when there were no books about coding. There was no Stack Overflow. There was no web to look things up on. You had to just trial and error.
This is how I figured out Subworkflows.
Nice. Yeah, right now you're disappearing, but I know what you mean. Okay, let's take some more questions.
Okay, Vignesh.
So, Louis, I'm new to JSON and I have two questions. Okay, the first question that I have is, in the sub workflow, the variables that you define remain only in the sub workflow, or are they also applicable in the main workflow?
A good question. So we set up these variables. The short answer is they are unique to this workflow and this workflow only. And the reason for that is because this workflow is completely independent from the other workflow. What we're doing is we're essentially, when we create this launch variable here in the start block, this launch variable doesn't have a value yet, right? And when we run the parent workflow, what we're saying is, hey, actually, like, here, catch this value that we're sending down, right? And so the sub workflow is like, oh, okay, I can apply, in this case, the name to the value of that name in the object and use it in this workflow. And that same thing is happening at the end, right? Where it's saying, hey, I need something to put in this JSON called all poems. Like, please give me back an object that I can put into this all poems JSON array. And so the sub workflows were setting up the output data as this JSON object to say, oh, here's like the result of that. Now you can go ahead and add this to the list, the JSON array, all poems.
And a follow-up question is, I'm a bit confused with the use of JSON. Earlier, you explained the hashtag each and then data, and then lower down you used item dot name for sending each name in, right? So when do I use each, and what is item dot name?
Good question. Yeah. So we can use each syntax in a couple of places. Not in the run workflow, but inside wherever we use Markdown, we can use this thing
guys,
called
I think
each.
this is confusing. No, please.
Okay.
We're teaching two different things. We're teaching two different ways to iterate over things, and people are already confused. So please disregard this. This is a different class. This is a different language that we're looking at here. Okay. And so, let's just stick with the run workflow block and how we use it to iterate. Don't worry about iteration via handlebars, because then everybody's going to get like really weirdly confused.
Okay. Sounds good.
So then what is item in item.name? What is the item there?
Great. Good question. The item represents one of the objects in the array. So if you see here, well, let's go back in the debugger here. We get this, this is what we're sending in, right? This array, you can tell it's an array because of the square brackets. And in this array, there are 3 objects. So, and you know that because it's numbered here. So each item represents one of these objects.
Yeah. So an item is the object. whatever object it's looking at now. It loops through all three of them. For each one that it looks at, we call that each. And each one has this item, and that item in this case also has a property called name. And so when we do dot, we can access the property of the object, of the item. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alex?
So I'm like Vignesh, I'm new to JSON. And one of the, I guess now I have two questions really.
Sorry, Alex, quick question. When you say new, do you mean you've never seen it before this class? Or do
No,
you
I mean, look, I've sold software for 20 years. I know how to discuss a JSON and what it does. That
meaning,
part, the
have you been to
conception-
some of our other classes where we dove deep into it? Any of the other master
I was
classes?
in the last week's class where that was the first time we dove.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, great.
And I took
keep
copious
going.
notes, Dimitri. It's just,
Okay, no worries. Keep going.
I'm trying to conceptualize. So when you are referencing an item like you were just talking about with Vignesh, does the prompt automatically go through each item in sequence? Is that what's happening practically?
It is what's happening.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And sorry, just a quick clarification. The run workflow block goes through each item
Okay.
in sequence. Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure because the referent wouldn't just be to one, but I guess if you have multiple items, it's going to go multiple. If you have one, it'll do one.
Exactly.
Now, my next question is more to both of you vis-a-vis best practices. If you have a JSON array that has multiple items to multiple objects in it, is it best to run in parallel in terms of the workflow like you were showing? Is it best to run in parallel or best to run in sequence? What do you feel is the best solution? Is it a matter of how fast are you trying to go or how detailed are you trying to be? I mean, what's the distinction in terms of that?
This is actually a question on the final exam.
Okay, well, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody want to answer it other than Luis or me? Oh, maybe in chat. When would you run something in parallel versus serially?
When there is no dependencies between the data that needs to be shared with each of the runs, and they can run by themselves and gather the data. That's the biggest one I can think of.
I think usually parallel, but if you need the results of one, you need to go sequential. Otherwise, you don't have the result of the first one.
Yeah, if your order matters, sometimes you're doing things where the order matters. Other things you're doing things where the order doesn't matter. If the order matters, then don't do it in parallel. If the order does not matter, I don't care what books or whatever, in this case, users we process first. We could process number 2, then number 1, then 0. I don't care, just process. If I did care, then I might want to use it in parallel, in serially. Or again, you could actually run things in parallel and then later order things. So there's like a number of ways to do it. But when order matters, typically is when you should think about, should I not do parallel?
Okay, got it. So order means go with the sequence, and if not, run in parallel and you'll get it. Okay.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And Dimitri, second reason where we have come across that situation is where my time window is very short. I need to get everything done in that time window. And after that, I lost my window. So in that term, just run everything parallelly. Whatever you get, you get it.
That makes sense.
Otherwise,
yes. But then it's a trade-off. Like you might
Exactly.
need
That's a
time,
trade-off.
but you might need things. So, but yes, those are the dimensions. Well done. Okay. Joe?
Yeah, so if just want to get clarification. I think Prasanna touched on it when you went to the Subworkflow. Click on the Subworkflow, please, and go to the start block. And like, oh, I forgot my launch variable is supposed to be names. Change that to names, add the S, and then go back to the run workflow. This kicked my butt last couple of days.
No worries. Whatever you call that launch variable is how you're supposed to refer to it.
See how it took away where he had item.name. So if you change the sub workflow, that value goes away. And I took me forever to catch that.
I
Is that in, I'm not.
Yes,
is
that's
that
intentional. Yeah, that's intentional. You created a new variable, you got rid of one, it deleted that,
Okay.
you created a new one, now you have to configure it. Yeah.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
yeah,
And then on the
so go ahead.
I'm just gonna say half of my contributions to my studio chat has been Slack has been cost savings. When my stuff wasn't working right, sequential was the right answer. When I saw it spinning up like 20 image generators with the word undefined in it, I changed it to sequential, so it only spin up one.
That makes sense. You can also just give it you don't have to give it 20 items. You can also like chop that off and give it smaller.
Yeah, it was picking up on the wrong thing and just going crazy.
Okay. I think our time is up here.
Alex, maybe
Oh,
just
sure, we'll take more.
one last
Sorry,
question.
keep going. Yeah, I was going to frame some more. Yeah, sorry, keep going, Alex.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if this was the right forum to ask the question because I've been chasing for help here, but the issue on one of the assignments with the Slack generator and the JSON, I think in reference to the question here, it's like I go through the same best practice and try to expect the answers, but I keep hitting a wall and I'm not sure how to sort of really comprehend that from a place of learning because it's like, you see the JSON format, it's valid, it's ideal the way that it's structured. And then when you run it and it's still telling you have an error, it's like confusing the hell out of me if I'm still learning the same thing, or if like maybe what you're explaining here as an example would kind of make sense in terms of like a nested, item and then within the array and how that is carried in when you run through it and there's a problem. So it's like, I don't know how to address that, but that's kind of like an issue that I've been trying to get someone's attention for the past couple of days.
Let's post it. Did you post it in Slack?
3 times now, at least.
Okay, and nobody has answered your question?
Partly, but not
But it's still
very
broken.
helpful.
Okay,
Yeah.
why don't you send, whatever, me or Luis, your agent will take a quick look at it and see what you did wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ken?
Yeah, I just want to clear one thing up in my mind. When you called the run workflow, you called it with an array object where each item had, or where each element had 6 items, right? And when the sub workflow finished, you had a different array object with just 2 items. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's right.
What if I wanted to insert poem inside the original array object and return that? Is that possible?
You rebuild a new object with all of those other items and poem there as well.
That's what I figured. I just wanted to know if there was a shortcut.
Yeah, no, that's the right way to do it here. There are other ways to do it as well, but that's the way you should do it here.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, so from watching all your faces and seeing all your questions, I know that we have not yet succeeded.
That's right.
Okay. And so your homework assignment is to spend more time getting more queasy. And then we will find some time to do the exact same class we just did from a bit of a different angle. And I have an idea of, I think, the next structure that might unlock, more of you. Another koan.
I feel like I'm drinking from a JSON fire hose.
Perfect. That's then you're doing it right.
Okay.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, yeah, good to see everyone. Again, keep at it. You're almost there. We're excited to get you guys through the funnel. Find some time. Keep asking questions, and let's keep going.
Thanks for all your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. I always raise my hand, Dimitri, but this time I will say this. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. This was great.